Hi there, it's April the 14th and we continue our journey through Luke's Gospel, and we're in chapter 16, finishing off chapter 16 from verse 19 and going through to chapter 17 and verse 10. So at the end of chapter 16, Jesus tells a parable of a rich man and a poor man. The rich man, we don't have his name, he tends to be called Dives traditionally, but Dives is just the Latin word for rich. And Lazarus, we're given his name, the poor man who sits at the gate and who is in a terrible state health-wise. And then there's a sequel to this in the life hereafter, where Lazarus is taken into the bosom of Abraham. He's taken into the place of peace and paradise, as it were, whereas the rich man is consigned to Hades, a place of suffering and a place of torment. And Jesus tells the story that says the man in hell calls out and asks for Lazarus to go and get a bit of water to put on his tongue because he's so thirsty. But he's told that there isn't that possibility, that can't be done. And in your lifetime you had all the good things and this poor man had nothing. And then the rich man then says, from his place of deep sorrow and deep trial, he says, please go and let my 5 brothers know that I'm in this state and that they should avoid it as well. But Abraham then says, they have the law of Moses, they have the prophets, let them listen to them. But his brother says, look, why don't you send someone who's risen from the dead? Let someone rise from the dead and go and speak to them. But Abraham says to them, even if someone rose from the dead, if they're not listening to Moses and the prophets, then they're not going to listen even to someone who's risen again. This is a very challenging story for us because Jesus is speaking about a payback, something that continues on after this life. Now, we can't necessarily draw our theology or eschatology from this because, for one thing, Jesus depicts the poor man as going to the bosom of Abraham, so it's very much a Jewish picture, and he depicts the rich man as going into Hades, which is very much the Greek understanding of the underworld. So we wouldn't want to base our whole theology on this, but the point that Jesus is making is that there are consequences to our actions. There are things that will lead to blessing and things that will lead to our cursing. There are things that will bring us up, lift us up. There are things that will pull us down, and those things have consequences even beyond this lifetime. And Jesus is obviously also making a point because he's going to be the one who rises from the dead. He's going to be the one who comes again. But he's not replacing Moses and the prophets, and he's saying, I am of a peace with them, and actually you need to be listening to what's already being taught about mercy and justice in the law and the prophets. Jesus then goes on in chapter 17 to talk about sin and failure, but he talks about also forgiveness. He said there are going to be things that really trip people up. There are going to be things that people fall over on, and actually woe to those who bring these things about, that harm the little ones. They're going to be suffering. But if someone comes and asks for forgiveness, then forgiveness is available, and we're to forgive those around us even when they harm us, and we're to forgive them really unlimited times. Although it has here 7 times 7 many times, it's really saying unlimited. Let's not count the forgiveness that we bring. But then Jesus also says that if we have faith, we can see mountains removed. Faith is that which sees breakthroughs, and we only need to see that in small measure to see things really change. And that faith is the faith of God, the faith that God gives to us. And lastly, in this reading, in chapter 17, Jesus talks about the slaves who just do what slaves are meant to do. It's kind of saying here that we can't earn God's favour, we can't earn God's blessing, we can't earn God's brownie points with God by doing things, because at the end of the day, we're only doing what really we should be doing. And we always will be what Jesus calls unprofitable servants. Now what that means is he's never going to make a profit on us. However hard we work, however much we do, we cannot repay the amazing gift of grace that God has given to us. We will always be his lost leaders, and he's not trying to make a profit on us, because what he's done for us, he's done out of his grace. Let's enjoy that grace today. Let's live in the light of heaven. Let's live generously, let's live forgiving, but also let's live recognizing that we are given everything through his grace. Have a very good April 14th.